So, after moving the story forward a little bit in issue 43, it looks like we're going to be visiting an old friend in this issue. And he brought along a friend of his own, too, from what it looks like. The cover looks pretty good and actually looks like it could be a scene straight out of the story later on, showing off our 4 principal characters, with a pretty interesting background. We open on Sweet Jesus, Rotor, you've been doing commissions for the Doomslayer or something? Anyway, Rotor's been showing Sonic some of his most recent inventions, including an indoor grill that I'm sure knocks the fat out of anything, when an alarm goes off in their lab. A quick check on their fancy scanners, and Rotor concludes that something catastrophic is happening on the floating island. Sally is already there as well, and the team quickly scrambles onto a plane to fly off and help. Cut to the island where Knuckles believes that the quaking of the island means someone is messing around with the gem in the Chaos Chamber, and he's right. As it turns out, Anti-Sonic is there for the emeralds, and he's not alone as an Anti-Knuckles lays Knuckles flat out. This copy is even sporting an Irish accent and wearing a beret, so you know he's trouble. Knuckles manages to fight him to a standstill and force them to retreat when their portal starts to close, and after a quick meeting with Archimedes, which basically amounts to, "Heard there was trouble, but looks like I got here too late to help," Knuckles goes outside just in time to meet Sonic, Sally, and Tails as they arrive. For once, the two of them are actually able to hold a conversation without going for each other's throats, and Sonic not only puts 2 and 2 together pretty quick, but tells them that he knows just where to find his doppelganger. And cut to Sonic leading their frickin' plane into the Cosmic Highway, where Sally and Knuckles have a bit of a moment with one another, giving us some backstory on their relationship. They were basically secret best friends when they met on the floating island, and neither of them really told anyone else about their meeting. Knuckles wants to know if she wants to tell Sonic, but she deflects the question for some reason, while Knuckles updates her on the status of his quest for the crown. He's working on it, apparently. Does beg the question why he returned here when the Chaotix, who were supposed to be guarding the place, are nowhere to be found, though. When they pop through the portal into Anti-Mobius, Sonic gives them a quick explanation about the opposite nature of the world, while Rotor sends up a drone camera to see if he can find anything. Sonic asks, seemingly out of nowhere, if it's strange that they're using a lot of tech to beat a technological enemy, but that doesn't really go anywhere because they're ambushed by Sonic and Knuckles' doppelgangers. While Sonic easily is able to lead away his Anti, Knuckles and his continue to fight to a standstill, until the Anti-Knuckles just sort of stops. Sonic manages to take down his own aggressor while Anti-Knuckles explains that he's actually a pacifist who abhors violence for any reason, and even though someone's draining the energy from his own island's Chaos Emeralds, he doesn't want to resort to force to fix the problem. Knuckles, of course, views him as a coward for this and tells him so, telling him that he's supposed to be a guardian regardless of personal creed. Begs the question why someone would take up the mantle of a protector if they didn't want to fight for it, but hey. Anti-Knuckles reveals that in this dimension, it's not a floating island, but a sunken one, and takes them all down to the surface using an underwater monorail system. Sonic notes that the air seems pretty thick down there, and Rotor states that if they don't do something about the containment field, it'll just get thicker as time goes on. After hearing a bunch of drilling and blasting noises, the gang follows the sound and walk right into Robotnik. No sneaking or anything, they just literally waltz in and announce their presence. As it turns out, Robotnik came to this world to use it as both a gathering place for raw materials and a testing ground for his weapons and experiments. Since there's no war going on in this world, he can do whatever experiments he wants without arousing suspicion because they'll just chalk up any disturbance he causes to natural occurrences. And then they're all easily captured by a group of SWAT bots around them. Maybe you guys shouldn't have just walked in on him like that, Tails is the first to be launched out into the ocean, where he starts to panic a little bit, but salvation comes from an unlikely place as the SWAT bots attempt to fire Anti-Sonic out. He fights back, yelling that this wasn't part of the plan, knocking down all the SWAT bots. Rotor is sent out into the water to rescue Tails, while the others gather around Evil Sonic and start pressuring him about this plan he apparently had with Robotnik. Cut back to Sonic and Knuckles confronting Robotnik again. Turns out Anti-Sonic was working with him for a piece of the action, though that obviously didn't last long, as Robotnik turns a particle beam on Sonic and Knuckles, the beam creating an open portal into the Chaos Chamber back on the floating island. Archimedes shows up to tell Knuckles basically what I just said, and Knuckles and his antithesis leap into the chamber as Sonic and Sally attempt to distract Robotnik and keep his attention away from the echidnas. They reposition the emerald, turning the top of it towards Robotnik, who fires on it again in an attempt to destroy it, but apparently hitting the top of the emerald just reflects the beam. We're assured that Robotnik isn't dead, just a little misplaced, as Anti-Knuckles gathers up a series of emeralds from the ground that had been powering Robotnik's laser and uses them to repower the containment field, thus saving his own island. Everyone takes the monorail back to the surface as Anti-Knuckles explains that Robotnik most likely ended up back in his world from the blast, and that his plan had been to try and destroy Knuckles' Chaos Emerald so that it couldn't be used against him. They meet up with Rotor and Tails, fresh out of the water, while Sonic jokes about how little Rotor's tech actually helped them this issue. Man, Sonic, way to be an ass. This was a pretty good story for the most part. It once again brings us back to Anti-Mobius and introduces us to another denizen of that world, as well as a very interesting location in it, but the plot itself is very by the numbers. Not bad at all, I dare say it's actually fairly well written for a basic adventure story, but it does raise a few questions, like where the Chaotix were, and how Knuckles is able to go on this big journey while at the same time coming back at a moment's notice to defend the island. And while it isn't as terribly written as, say, Sonic Live, and the dialogue is better than in the last issue, Penders' usual writing tick of having characters talk way too much is still present here. Manny Galan and Andrew Papoy handle artwork for this issue, and it's fairly well done, but there's not a whole lot of detail to the characters. Shading and lighting are barely used this time around, and when it is used, it looks a little off to me. Character expressions and bodies are also simplified to their most basic look, and there's almost no frills to the book's flow or design. Like the story itself, there's nothing bad about the artwork this time, save for some weird expressions here and there, but it feels very unimpressive and doesn't leave much of a big impact. Well, it's been fun, but wouldn't you know we got ourselves another special to look at, so I hope you're all ready as we take a look at Sonic Blast. This time presented to us in 2 dimensions instead of 3. I'll see you all next time, everyone.